Let's talk about a specific housing dilemma that we're starting to see hit a lot of Canadians right now, especially people who left the city of Toronto during the pandemic. So I myself was one of those people who left the city. I lived in Toronto, left it during the pandemic. Back in 2020, 2021, even 2022, leaving the city felt like the smart play. It felt very smart even for us to do it because why would you want to stay stuck in a small apartment where you have to work, live, eat, do everything, and you're pretty much locked inside a 400 or 500 square foot unit, right? It also made sense at that time to leave the city because prices in Toronto were insane at that point. They're even still insane, but at that time they were very insane. And if you left the city, you could get a much better price on any type of property, especially townhomes, detached, semis, right? So let's say the average home price was almost 1.2 million in 2022. Compare that to 2009 when it was around 813,000. That's nearly a 50% jump in just a few years. So naturally, a lot of people, including myself, were like, you know what, forget it. Let's just move out, move up north, move out west, move out east, and get something that's cheaper. And it obviously made sense, right? Especially if you could work remotely, which I was doing at the time. Same with my wife. You could work from home. We could set up an office in our home and work from there. Companies were fine with it. They were actually promoting remote work. We're actually working from Muskoka and going up north, and suddenly you didn't have to stay in Toronto to do your job. You could easily go to the suburbs, easily go to a cottage, commute, right? You got more space, even more land, right? If you bought something, you have land, you're not just in the sky, a box in the sky. So it really felt like the smart, perfect move. Now, so here's the dilemma that people are facing. Do you sell the home you bought outside of the city and move back to the city, especially if you're forced to go back to work? Or do you hang on and maybe just rent a place downtown just so you can survive the work week? Now, it's a very important question because it's not really an easy way to answer, right? Neither option is very easy. Let's look at selling first. So selling real estate obviously isn't free, right? You have to pay commission to the realtors, about 5%, right? 2.5% each side, buying and selling end. Transaction costs can easily add up to 10% of your home value when you factor in those commissions, legal fees, land transfer taxes, which people forget, especially when you buy in Toronto, you hit with like double land transfer tax, moving costs, appraisal costs, the other costs associated with buying a home and selling, right? The list goes on. And if you're selling in a softer market like we are in right now, you obviously could be giving up a big chunk of your equity just to make that move back to the city. So let's say you decide to rent in Toronto. It's not exactly a bargain either, because right now a newer condo in the downtown core is going for around $4 a square foot per month. Okay, if you rent a small 400 square foot crate condo, you're paying close to $20,000 a year, sometimes even more, right? Just for a crash pad near the office, basically. You're just paying for somewhere to sleep that's close to your work, so you don't have to like hours out of your day commuting. And that's on top of all the other costs, the home, let's say, that you already own in the suburbs. So this is why people are panicking. But in reality, panic is the worst thing you can do when it comes to real estate, or really any kind of financial decision. People tend to panic, right? When the market drops, when something that they own goes down in value, especially if they can't hold on to it, right? And if you make a sudden decision without really weighing everything, it can make you for sure lose a lot of money, right? So it's not obviously just about money. We have to think about social costs, the life costs. You got to think about the quality of your life, spending hours in traffic every day. Or obviously, if you hold on to that property and rent, you got to manage, let's say, having 2 properties, right? Or the regret, let's say, if you sell too quickly and realize that you could have managed it differently or maybe made money in the future. Now, what we're really seeing is the unwinding of the pandemic era trend, right? At the height of COVID, demand for the suburban and secondary markets was through the roof. And people can agree with me. Obviously, people moved to Niagara, Barrie, Oshawa, they went up to Muskoka. That was all fueled by that belief that remote work was here to stay, that it wasn't going to leave, right? But now we're seeing a change, right? We're seeing a return to office mandates by a lot of corporations. We're seeing the reverse, rental demand creeping back into urban cores, markets which looked absolutely dead a couple of years ago, kind of signs of life, but I don't think it will be for long, right? I think condo prices are down and they probably will continue going down. But the other side of it is condo rental prices have been continuing to decline. So renting a condo almost makes a lot of sense for people who just want to be in that city and who work there. So in some cases might be actually to buy, let's say, a small place in Toronto today than it was 2 years ago. Absolutely. Now, obviously, you still have to remember that the housing market has weak liquidity, right? If you buy something, you need to make sure that you can wait, you have time. Obviously, selling now isn't easy, right? Even if you own something outside of the city, selling right now is very difficult, right? Even if you price it really well, the market is in a point right now where you could price something really well and it could still sit for 5-6 months. That's how crazy it is right now. So what do you do if you're in this position, right? So here's my personal perspective on what you should do. First, I think you shouldn't really rush and make a hasty decision, right? You should think about it. Don't make a snap decision under stress. Run the numbers, literally put together some sort of analysis on your computer. Type out how much you're paying in interest costs, how much it'd be to rent. You got to factor in all the costs of selling, right? Paying all the commissions, paying the lawyer fees, run everything. And then look at what it would cost to sell versus buy, and also the ongoing cost of commuting, right? Sometimes renting temporarily, even though it feels like throwing money away, is the least damaging option. Even if it buys you more time and flexibility, it could make you happier in the long run. And you got to also think about your work situation, right? Is the return to office truly permanent, right? Like, a lot of these companies are pulling people back into the office, but for how long, right? Could that change again in the future with technology improving so fast that remote work might become so efficient? Companies might just all barely having an office space, right? Where let's say people can work so efficiently from home that they might go back to remote work. There's always a chance that could happen. And obviously, you got to think about flexibility down the road, weigh that into your decision. Third, don't underestimate the hybrid option. So I know people who are actually staying with family while they maintain that home in the suburbs, right? Maybe they rent it out or something, are carpooling, working out creative schedules, just making it work whatever way, splitting the cost of a condo with a colleague, right? So none of these are perfect solutions, but they can help you avoid making a serious permanent move at the wrong time. So obviously, it's a tough situation for people that moved out of the city, something, and they have this option now of renting something cheaper in the city, maybe selling what they have, maybe renting it out, and then renting somewhere downtown, right? So someone can live in there, pay the mortgage a little bit while they live closer to their job and just rent a place, right? Maybe they buy. What do I think about the condo market? I think obviously it's in for a rough ride, but let's say you are for sure know that you're going to stay down there for a long time. Buying now and holding for the next 10, 20 years, I think you'll be happy at the end of the day, right? I personally am not a huge fan of condos, but if you absolutely need to buy one, I have all the bargaining power in the world right now. So why not try and get it for even a better price, but get better conditions, find a seller that's really desperate to sell at a great unit, great building. You're going to have the maintenance fees, but just know that you can find a unit in a situation where you can really pull them down and get it for a great value. Maybe you can get something for $500,000 that used to cost $800,000 at the peak of the market. One day, it could easily be $1 million. Not saying that'll happen anytime soon, but maybe in 10, 20 years, that $500,000 condo definitely could be worth $1 million. If inflation ramps up, asset inflation comes back in, quantitative easing comes in, the Bank of Canada starts printing money, those devalued dollars are going to find their way into real estate. People are going to borrow money, especially if interest rates come down. Housing market is Canada's golden goose. It will not let it die. So those are my current thoughts on this. Let me know what you guys think.